All right, so the second part of our polynomials unit is talking about how do we divide polynomials. And we're going to begin this unit by starting in dividing a polynomial by a monomial, and then we'll gradually get a little bit bigger and talk about how that works. Okay, so that's our learning target. All right, so let's start with how do we divide a monomial by a monomial. So let's take a look at this first one. It says divide x to the fifth by x to the third. So one thing to start, if you're like, I'm not really sure what this equals, it's helpful to see this in expanded notation. So x to the fifth looks like that, and then x to the third looks like this. Now we know that anything divided by itself is 1, right? So x divided by x cancels to 1. So this is also 1, and this is also 1. Now, I don't need to write 1 because I have other stuff here. So now you can see I have two x's on the top left. So this would be equal to x squared. I have 1 on the bottom, but I don't need to write x squared over 1. I can just write x squared. So then some people said, well, man, I noticed something. Wouldn't it be quicker to just, instead of writing an expanded notation, I could just subtract these exponents instead. So somebody said, if I'm dividing two things, let's say x to the a power over x to the b power, it's simpler to just subtract these exponents. That's faster. Now this does not mean we're subtracting. This is just the opposite. Like when we multiplied, we added exponent. Doesn't mean we're adding. We're still multiplying, but it's just a shortcut. So if I look at this, then I have y to the 12th. I don't have to write out y 12 times. I could just say, let's subtract these. This would be y to the 12 minus 8 power, which is going to give me y to the 4th power. Okay, that's an ugly 4. I'm going to make that a little bit better. There we go. So my answer would be y to the 4th. And then if I start to add coefficients in here, like 90 and 10 here, remember you're still dividing. So when you're going to see those coefficients, you're going to go 90 divided by 10 is 9. Okay, and now I have my variables with exponents, and this is where I would subtract those exponents. So this would end up giving me 9x squared. Okay, remember you're dividing. Shortcut, though, with variables and powers is to subtract their exponents. Okay, hope that's a good refresher from your Algebra 1 days. So now let's talk about a couple of weird things that happen as well. So we know that this is now, when you're dividing, as long as their bases are the same, you can subtract their exponents, right? So that's what it says here, x to the x minus b power. Okay, so if I look at this here that I've written m to the 4th divided by m to the 4th. Well, you know that anything divided by itself should be equal to 1, right? Well, this is another way to look at this would be, right? Whoops. Okay, well, we do know that cancels to 1, 1, 1, 1. I don't have anything left, so I can just write. If I don't have anything, I need to write a 1. So I have to use 1 as a placeholder. But I also know that this is equal to this. So what is that? Well, that's m to the 0 power. Okay? So what does this mean? Well, anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. We can see that here. So we can see by this property, I should be able to subtract. So really, anything that you see to the 0 power is equivalent to 1. Generally, they cancel out, but if I don't have anything, I need to write the 1. So if I say c to the 0 power, we know then that this is actually equal to 1. Anything to the 0 power, 3 to the 0 power. If you type that into your calculator, you'll get 1, and that's why. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how do we take a whole polynomial and divide it by a monomial. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to divide every term in the numerator by the denominator, the monomial. Every single term. Watch your signs and keep in mind this property, right? And then make sure your final answer is in standard form. Once again, we're dealing with polynomials. Your answer should always be in standard form. So really, that's it. So how does this work? Well, let's take a look. Again, there's two steps. We're going to start by dividing, in this case, 12x plus 22 divided by 2. And what does this mean? We're going to take every term in the numerator, so 12x, and positive 22, and we're going to divide them both by 2. Okay? And since there are two terms in the top, we're dividing by one term, we should have two terms left. So this one, 12 divided by 2 is 6. I have an x in the numerator, no x in the denominator, so that's going to stay an x here. And then 22 divided by 2 is 11. It's a positive 11, so we're just going to put a plus or minus sign in between every term. So now, is this in standard form? Yes, and that's my answer. The key thing is remembering every term gets divided by the denominator, though. So every single one, you'll see that there, gets divided by 2. So this would be 6x plus 11, and that would be my answer since it's in standard form. And that's how you divide a polynomial by a monomial. Now, of course, they can get a little bit more challenging than this, but we'll just kind of gradually get a little bit more each time. Okay, so here we have 8n squared, and we're going to divide that by 4n. We also have a negative 36n. We're going to divide that by 4n. Okay, now I have 8 divided by 4. Let's look at that. That's 2. This is n squared. And this is really, remember, really a 1 here. If you need to put that there, go for it. You don't have to put it there, but it might help some people. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So 2n to the first power. Again, you don't need to write that to the first power. We generally don't. So this gives us 2n. Now let's look at this next one. 36n divided by, negative 36n divided by 4n. Negative 36 divided by 4 is negative 9. N divided by n, these cancel out. That's 1, or n to the 0 power, which is 1. Now, I would need to write a 1 here if I did not already have the negative 9, because I need that placeholder. But I already have a negative 9, so I don't need to write also times 1. That's not necessary because that's still negative 9. So I don't need to write that part. The n's cancel out. So I have 2. My final answer here is 2n minus 9, and that's in standard form. Degree 1 and then 0, so we're good. And that's my answer. So this is the step every time, the steps every time, no matter how complicated it gets. So one of the things that they'll try to do is mess with you. They might have 3 terms in the top. That's okay. Just take all of those and divide it by the denominator, and you'll be okay. So then you would have 3 terms for your answer. And then both variables, if there's more than one variable, 3 variables, don't panic. It's okay that everything works the same. So let's try this. Okay, I've got negative 14 x to the 12th y to the 5th divided by negative 7x squared y squared. I also have another negative 7x squared y squared divided by negative 7x squared y squared. Okay, now let's look at that first group there. So right here we have a negative 14 divided by negative 7 is positive 2. Okay, now these both have the same base, so I can subtract their exponents. So this would give me x to the 10th, 12 minus 2. And these have the same base, so I can subtract their exponents. So this would give me y to the 3rd. Now these are all being multiplied together. This is one term. They stay together. Don't put a plus or minus sign in between that. That's all one term. So now we're going to go to the second grouping here. So I have negative 7 divided by negative 7 is positive 1. Now I have x squared divided by x squared. Well, that cancels out there. That's 1. But I already have a 1 here. I don't need to write another 1. And I got y squared divided by y squared. That cancels out. So now notice I no longer have an x or a y, and I have that 1 already there. So really, this is then 2x to the 10th, y to the 3rd, plus 1. and that's in standard form. The degree of first term is 13. The degree of the second term is 0. And this is how you do these every single time. Okay, so take your time, and you should be fine. That's really it for dividing polynomials by monomials. This is an important first step in getting us familiar with how to do more complicated ones. So your assignment today is the dividing polynomials by monomials worksheet. Make sure you write that into your planner, and then once you've submitted it to Schoology, check it off. Good luck, and hope everything goes well. Bye.